Morning. A butterfly lands softly on the petal of a starflower. 9,000 miles away, a small Fijian hurricane sends a gust of residual wind, causing the butterfly to flap its gossamer wings. The wispy downdraft from the butterfly's wing flap rouses some unseen pollen particles, sending them to drift to the ground. This tiny molecular overload triggers an awaiting landslide, which moments later inspires a breathtaking cascade of rock slides. The tumbling boulders generate a breeze, which fans a nearby campfire, causing it to flourish, sharing its warmth with the surrounding kindlescape. Nearby trees respond in turn by bursting into brilliant orange flames. The butterfly is now embraced by a warm cloud of smoke. The flying caterpillar coughs quietly, and we are left to wonder, what will happen to the butterfly? To the trees, to the tumbling rocks, to the other trees in the hurricane? The answer is fascinating.
The Earth is our home, but it is also so much more. It provides materials for us to build smaller homes on top of it. It gives us a cornucopia of water and food. It also tells us what outfits to wear by changing its temperature almost daily. In turn, we do a lot for our soil-filled matriarch. We prune it to make it more presentable to other planets. We adorn it with our architecture and lawn furniture. And occasionally, we even embarrass it with our poor neighborhoods. But perhaps the most important aspect of our relationship with our homosphere is how we communicate with it. We speak to the Earth, and in exchange, the Earth speaks back to us. The question is, are we listening?
Feed me. Don't take my water. Be nice to rabbits. Get off of me. Why are you on? Don't swim there. Don't swim on that side of the ocean. Slow down. Take care. Be gentle. That's not your soul. That's not your soul. I like that building.
The Earth started off as nothing more than a small, fiery star. Then, 4 billion years and 2 months ago, this tiny but powerful force of energy began attracting passing asteroids and space rocks onto it, like a gravitational magnet. They piled up around the star center, building a geological crust, which encased the star, first turning it into a moon, and then amassing enough soil to make it a bona fide planet. The largest of these asteroids that crashed into Earth landed and broke apart, their pieces piling up to form what we call today mountains. As a young planet, Earth was mostly peaceful and smooth, like a baby. But eventually, it became agitated and bumpy, like a teenager, reaching its puberty. Volcanoes erupted. Hair sprouted in the form of tall grasses and weeds, which caught fire. The ground split apart, gushing poisons and gases, which exploded, creating the oceans. This was a period that one could equate to a veritable hell on Earth, one whose legacy can still be felt today in places such as Afghanistan and New Jersey. This period of tumultuous upheaval caused the Earth's only landmass, called continentia, to break apart into several pieces, which today we call continents. And these continents broke into smaller pieces called islands, and these islands broke into smaller pieces called rocks, which broke into still smaller pieces called sand. And then that was it, as far as the breaking up process was concerned. The oceans, no longer boiling, began to cool and settle, and finally, an equilibrium was reached. tranquility spread like a virus across the now mature Earth, which looked much like the planet we know today, but without any people, or billboards, or buses, or other vehicles, and other things. And now, centuries later, the peaceful nature of our planet today belies the tumult hiding just beneath its surface. The Earth is in a constant struggle with its star's center, continually working to keep itself from exploding. But how does it do it? How does this planet keep itself balanced and not burst into fire everywhere? The answer is found in the Earth's cycles.
This narrow, deliberate mountain stream is a perfect example of one of our planet's natural self-sustaining cycles. The water starts at the top of the mountain and makes its way into this narrow channel, heading toward the bottom, rushing, gushing, gaining speed, more and more momentum. The rocks, their sides slick, accelerate the water as it passes, making its way to the very bottom, where it turns and then shoots back up the other side of the mountain until it reaches the very top, makes another turn, and begins its journey once again back down to the bottom of the mountain. A fascinating feat of natural engineering.
The stream is just a small example of one of the Earth's many wondrous cycles. One of the sturdiest of Earth's cycles is the rock cycle. Rocks in the ground are broken down by weather and pushed underground, where they start to burrow. Rocks will meet up with other rocks along the way and stick together thanks to gravity and their natural magnetic properties. These fused rocks then head to the center of the Earth, where they reproduce and create new layers which then re-emerge on the Earth's surface in the form of lava, which in turn creates more rocks. The direct opposite cycle is something we call the water cycle. Most of the water on Earth is located in the oceans. The sun shines down on these oceans, and the light from the sun's rays enters the top layer of the water, vaporizing it like a laser. As the light burns the water, smoke emerges, and this smoke we call clouds. These clouds rise up and fly away like balloons until they relieve themselves on us in the form of rain. And these are just two of the thousands of fascinating cycles that intertwine and work together to keep the Earth working together.
Once these cycles synced up, the stage was set for the most wondrous and living of Earth's wonders to flourish. Life. We now know that life first arrived on Earth 1 billion years ago on the backs of asteroids. The asteroids collided with the surface of the planet, shaking off bits of life that fell to the ground and planted themselves in the molten soil. And then it was only millions of months later, when the Earth's cycles had finally stabilized, much like a mature young woman's, that the conditions were finally perfect for life to thrive. First plants, then dinosaurs, then fruits and dogs, and just as birds and mushrooms were starting to appear, something fascinating happened.
And it would aim itself directly at the
dinosaur. They weren't intentionally bad. Now, their fatal flaw was that the Earth was sending them constant, clear signals, but they were so self-involved, focused only on food and dinosaur sex, that they didn't listen. Instead, what did they do? They started a gigantic dinosaur orgy located in the South Pacific. I'm talking the freakiest thing you ever seen. I'm talking 2 stegosauruses on a triceratops. We're talking about just raptors just getting together. The dinosaurs were so large that when they all flocked and f***ed in the same place, it created too much of a gravitational pull that it ended up just tilting the Earth.
And it would not only tilt the Earth, it would also create a gravitational magnet that would attract a gravitational disaster.
Almost without warning, the Earth attracted one final asteroid. A giant space rock the size of Australia crashed into the Asian Ocean, becoming what we now call Australia.
The Earth had spoken, and the remaining creatures listened. They hid in caves and each other, reproducing and evolving for centuries. Fish became mice, moss became whales, and jungle cats became regular cats. These humble adaptations in response to the Earth's fickle and often violent proclamations helped these creatures avoid the fate of their furry dinosaur ancestors. And no creature would better avoid that fate than the one that eventually would come up with the very word fate itself.
The arrival of one species, man, would change everything. The human being was the dominant animal among all species on the planet. But the Earth was no garden variety submissive. Mother Nature, despite the veritable gag ball man would attempt to shove into her mouth, would speak again. And loudly, she would speak. We find ourselves living as a biotype, or geosphere, and it's one of the newest types of all the spheres. Developed to endanger man with its high temperatures and hideous creatures such as the scorpion or the dirt snake. We don't know what will happen. Desert, only the future can tell us that. These were the first prisons.
Last time on our fascinating planet. A planet was born. It exploded all over itself and changed its own face. It survived its puberty, killed its dinosaurs, and then developed its own death-defying cycles to keep its starry insides in check, but it would leave its human outsides unchecked.
This is our fascinating planet.
The story of our Earth is a story of the life it has birthed and nurtured. And perhaps nothing has been birthed and nurtured more on Earth than
Animals, one of nature's most valuable resources. We chase them, we wear them, we play with them, we taunt them, we laugh at them, we roast them, we toast them, we even host them in our homes as pets. But lying just beneath the surface of these often ridiculous co-inhabitants of our shared home we call Earth is a much greater story, one filled with melodramatic danger and cosmic safety, all punctuated by glorious displays of our Earth's lifedom.
The Earth has long used animals to sustain itself. They dig holes in its soil to ventilate it. They swim in its waters to hydrate it. They stampede on its ground to massage it, and flap their wings in its air, moving its clouds to shade it. Animals eat plants to keep them from strangling the land, and they convert chewed plant carcasses into feces, which helps thicken the Earth's protective crust. And they urinate on its surface to quench its thirst and prevent it from exploding. And when they die, the animals melt into the earth, becoming food for plants. Animals eat plants, which then die and become food for new plants, which then also die and become dirt, which becomes food for the earth. Put simply, the earth would not be what it is today without its animals.
But the best of these animals is man, who just so happens to also be the worst of these animals. No conversation about life on Earth is complete without addressing man's almost flippant disregard for his animal neighbors with whom he shares this planet.
Statistically, man is the most dangerous animal on the planet. When you consider mankind's history and its clever use of things like jackhammers and atomic bombs, it's easy to see why. And man also ranks highest in conflicts. And at the same time, man ranks lowest in respect for the Earth. But how did we end up like this? It's almost as if man was destined to clash with Earth from the very beginning. A process that started with early humans, who lived in trees, and soon clashed with each other right out of those trees.
So early man's first journey, a veritable leap from the tree to the ground, was also the first significant step toward what we call civilization. Once our species managed to come together on the ground, we suddenly discovered that a lot of us didn't like a lot of them. And so, there was conflict.
Tribes began to separate, to sort themselves into warring factions based on their differences. Some separations were obvious, determined by things like hair type or body smell, or geography. Specifically, those who were good at geography went one way, and those who were not got lost. And as they wandered, trying to find their way back, they accidentally populated the Earth. But one thing would prove to separate human beings from each other more than anything else, something called religion. Man has long practiced religion because
it's the opposite. It's easy. Draw a circle, you wear a hat, talk about the sun. Maybe you get to burn a woman while she's still alive. People love that, to set women on fire. Sometimes you got to kill a bird, so animal cruelty was always really appealing.
with the advent of religion, man took his first real step toward changing the planet.
Early man's gods not only helped him describe small events like a poor harvest or diarrhea, but also larger phenomena like tornadoes, floods, plague, even earthquakes. All of this could be ascribed to an invisible source in the sky.
So man, almost from his beginning, looked not to Earth for answers, but away from it, and then beyond it, putting himself and his needs above his planet. And his gods would be instrumental in cultivating his disregard for the Earth itself. There was the Greek god of trash, the Inca god of killing things for fun, and the Chinese god of burning whatever you could, whenever you felt like it. And of course, the Nordic god of earth rape. For these gods were the perfect scapegoats. Perhaps no better example can be found than the Roman god, Scape, a goat.
In every ancient language, we see recurring phrases like, the gods made me do it, that f***ing goat, that kind of thing. So the goat was very prevalent in households. People talked about that a lot.
By removing any responsibility from himself, man was free to wreak havoc on the planet, and he would attack the Earth in many ways. We started by assaulting the Earth's plants. We began to grow them only to kill them and eat them, and sometimes to smoke them. Animals soon became a favorite target for man. We hunted, killed, wore, and even teased animals, even turning some of them into our play slaves or pets. A barbaric custom that is still practiced in many places today. This has had dire consequences. But perhaps man's greatest assault has been on the Earth itself, building homes and towns, digging into the Earth to extract minerals, to make vitamins and jewelry, and decorating the land in embarrassing ways. Soon, cities began to rise. The goal was clear: remove all traces of nature as quickly as possible. And in many places, we've succeeded in doing just that.
We went from living in small straw huts to living in tall straw skyscrapers almost overnight, which today, of course, are no longer made of straw, but of balsa wood and concrete and plexiglass.
These concrete jungles and prairies have replaced the regular jungles and prairies that once ruled the planet, leaving man today with little choice but to live and die in his own industrial wasteland.
Today, 5 in every 7 people lives in a city, and of those, 2 in every 3 are 10 times more likely to spend the remaining 3/5 of their life in the heart of that city. And of those, 90% will die in a city, and of those, 80% will die a violent death in that city. And of those, 10% will live in either an urban.
And so today we find a planet that is in many places almost unrecognizable. Animals often look confused or embarrassed as they enter our habitats. And even worse, many of them have suffered psychologically from our overwhelming impact.
Animals replicate human life. You'll see human cultures behaving a certain way, and animals go, oh, humans are better than me, I want to behave like that. And you'll see that I study quail patterns, how quails interact over time. And quails act like people, and it's disgusting, it's wrong, but it's fascinating. And also, we keep animals as pets because they're not as smart, they're not as intelligent. We eat them for food because they're objects, essentially. Objects with a heart. So it causes a lot of questions to come up.
And we mock the earth by making things like plastic Christmas trees and wooden ducks.
Man has displayed an almost tragic arrogance towards his planet. While we jump for Jupiter and salivate over Saturn, we are brazen enough to use the very material from the Earth to make small, ridiculous dolls of it, called globes. On top of that, to get these very materials, we have penetrated the Earth and robbed it of its fossil fuels which we burn like witches or dogs. This has had dire consequences, namely, globular warming. Our planet is in trouble. There's no question about that now. And man, more than any species, is responsible for it. Fire, once thought to be man's best friend, now turns out to be one of nature's worst enemies.
It's likely we're going to destroy ourselves, right? But that's something that's also seemed likely for a really long time, and we've made it this far.
In fact, the future is in our hands, both our own future and our planet's. The question is, what do we do with it?
So what does the future hold for our fascinating planet? The current interglacial period ends, sending the Earth into another ice age. Extinction of animals continues to occur until they are all gone, and we all become vegan, removing all joy from the planet. Father Earth comes back, and we must decide which Earth we want to live on. Everything works out, and we learn to live harmoniously with our planet. Well, that's up to you.
The Earth is not just our home, it is also our friend and our enemy, much like a mother or a foster aunt. We may leave this planet someday, or it may explode, and we will find ourselves living on small, oddly shaped Earthlets hurtling through space, which will never be as good as the planet was when it was all together in one big ball the way it is today. We don't know what will happen. Only the future can tell us that. But in the meantime, instead of telling this planet what to do, as we have for centuries, maybe we should start listening to her. And when we do, let's not be so arrogant that we end up laughing at what she has to say.